I'm curious, now that you've been doing it for so long, like how many six-figure launches do you think PLF has helped you achieve in your business over the years?
So we've done 24 six-figure launches with VO Heroes, which is my general course, with the ACX Masterclass, and now with the new platform, which is for authors who want to narrate their own titles, narrate your own book.
Hey, Launch family. As you know, today's episode is a little different than normal. We are in the midst of the Launch Masterclass. So my job is just to keep sending out some amazing inspirational value. And today's conversation is an awesome one. I got to sit down with David H. Lawrence the 17th. He is somebody who has built an incredible business in voiceover training. And I think you're going to really dig this conversation. So if you haven't yet, go to getyoulaunch.com and opt in for the Launch Masterclass, because this is just scratching the surface of what's possible for you in the Masterclass. Now let's get into the conversation in today's episode. Hello, Launch family. I'm here with David H. Lawrence the 17th. How are you doing today, David?
I am great. Thank you for asking.
I'm super stoked to talk to you today about your business and PLF. And well, for everyone who hasn't got a chance to know you yet, or maybe don't recognize you from what you do, can you tell people a little bit about what you do and who you serve?
I have a main job as being an actor on television and in film. Some people may go, oh yeah, that's the guy that scared the crap out of me the other night on Netflix. What I do when I'm not on set or in studio is I teach people how to do voiceover, use their voice to change the world, and also to narrate, specifically to narrate audiobooks. That kind of fills the gaps between the, hey, we booked somebody else, so sorry, and hey, we booked it. And I'm like, are you sure you booked me? I'm always doubtful because it's so difficult. I think people have an impression of how actors get work. You know, the numbers are working against us every single day. There's this many roles and there's this many actors just here in Los Angeles. So yeah, so that's what I do. And in between, PLF has been so helpful to me in terms of systematizing what I do when I train people.
Yeah, I hear most of actors, it's about not getting work, right? There's a lot more rejections than there are gigs out there for people. So when did you kind of decide that you needed to make this voice actor thing into a business that you could train people?
So I was actually dragged into it kicking and screaming. I had no intention of doing it whatsoever. I remember back in 2005, I'd known Jeff for a few years, and I was doing a radio show about technology and pop culture that was on XM and Sirius and on about 150 terrestrial radio stations across the country and in Canada. That was what I was doing. And one day I woke up and the weather was awful in Washington, D.C. And I thought to myself, that's it. I'm done. I'm moving to L.A. to see if this beautiful face and this gorgeous physique could do something funny on television or in film. And I was actually at an acting class, and I got an audition to do a quick voiceover recording, and I had to get it done quickly. And so I walked off into a corner of the room somewhere and was speaking into my phone. And when I turned around to go back to the class, a woman was standing there and goes, what were you doing? What was that? And I said, I was doing a voiceover. You know how to do that? Yeah, I do. Can you show me? Sure. And that blossomed into her talking to her friends. And within a month or two, I was teaching a commercial recording class at a workshop space in Los Angeles. I had no plans on doing that. And it started this kind of rotation toward doing this kind of training, which has now grown into something a little bit bigger than, hey, can you show me how to do that?
That's amazing. Well, you stumbled into this genius zone of people wanting to learn from you. That's awesome. Tell me about, like, when did this go online for you, and how did that move into PLF?
That's a great question. This all went online for me, again, me kicking and screaming, going, no, I have to teach this in person. I have to set up my equipment in a room somewhere and have people get up in front of the class and do the work so that everybody can. And the truth of the matter is that I was ignoring the zeitgeist of the voiceover world. When the pandemic hit, voiceover people were among the few sectors of the population that were like, wait, so we're supposed to be socially isolated and working from home and distanced from everybody? Okay, we've been doing that for about 25 years because people don't know this if they're not in the business, but a whole lot of what happens in the world of voiceover happens from voice talents, second bedrooms, and walk in closets, and dens, and basements, and has been for a long time since, equipment's been affordable and recording and editing software has been so inexpensive and in many cases free. We were there. We were ready to go, and it just boomed during the pandemic and the post-pandemic era when people were like, I need to do something from home and I need to learn how to do something from home. But in the mid 2015, 2016 era, mid decade, friends were telling me, you should think about teaching this online as opposed to having people go to a place. And there's positives to that. There's every time Jeff does a live event, you see the positives of being in a location in real life with people. But the truth is, me teaching people how to do voiceover recorded online sits them in their space with their gear and their earbuds or headphones exactly the way they would be if they were doing the work. So it's actually teaching them in situ, and that created a whole bunch of advantages. Plus, if you woke up in the middle of the night with a sweat and the only thing that would lower your anxiety was to become a voiceover talent at 2:30 in the morning, you could do it by 2:35. So, it all fit into place. And now we meet in real life, but we meet in real life just to sort of socialize with one another, and all the learning is done online.
Did you launch stuff before you found PLF, or was PLF like the guide that got you into launching this and getting the right strategy? Where did that factor in for you?
So I have known Jeff since before PLF was called PLF. We were both in a mastermind group in the early 2000s. And it was just a few years after I met him through that mastermind group that, he sort of began the process of PLF. And it was after the stock letter and all that sort of thing. But we were talking just about online marketing more than anything. And so I've watched PLF grow over the years. It's just been a joy to watch and to participate. There was a PLF Live in Phoenix where Jeff and I talked about being on camera because everybody was like, oh, now we're like shooting PLCs and shooting lessons in our courses that we're marketing. And I had some skills that I wanted to share with people about how to come to life on camera and be comfortable with that. And, when we did the live event, it involved rearranging the furniture on stage because it wasn't set up properly. It was pretty interesting. It was a fun, and it was one of several times that Jeff and I have shared stage together. And so I've kind of watched this happen over the years, but it wasn't until I actually had a product to sell that was going to be able to take advantage of an event-based product launch that I started using it. And so that was like maybe 2010, 2011. So for the last 15 years, I've been doing PLF, and it's been a lather, rinse, repeat process for me that has just been so lovely to hone and refine and put as a checklist into a very long Google Doc and just repeat it. And that's one of the proofs for me of the effectiveness of product launch formula is that, you can do it once, see what you did well, and then do that again and see what you could do better and raise the stakes. And so, yeah, I haven't been doing it as long as some people have been doing it, but longer than most.
I know it was going back a while, but do you remember that first launch that you ever did? with PLF, and what was it like?
One of the platforms that I teach audiobook narration is called the ACX Masterclass. And my partner in that is a longtime online marketer and has used a version of event marketing for a lot longer than I have. And so my participation in a PLF style launch began with him. And then, I was like, well, I know this stuff. I've been learning this stuff for a while now. And I do remember it was a 6-figure launch and it was great. There was this new platform for audiobook narration and production called ACX, which is what people who write books, the authors and the publishers, go to find narrators to narrate their books and turn them into audiobooks. And I had been working on that. I was one of the first 11 people on that platform and was one of their beta testers. And I thought, well, I can teach this. This is something that people can learn. And that has become a huge part of my portfolio. So going back to that, yeah, it was a nice moment for me, and it was not unexpected. There have been times when I've thought, oh, nobody's ever going to buy from me again. That little tiny, tiny head of the imposter syndrome raising it up, and then I take a hammer and I pound on it and it goes away. But I do remember thinking, yeah, I know this is going to work because I know Jeff and I know what this stuff does and I see what other people do. And I'm going to do my version of it and work my way into the room. And then we'll see what happens from there.
Your first launch being a 6-figure launch, that must have been pretty amazing for a first time launching using PLF. But I'm curious, now that you've been doing it for so long, like how many 6-figure launches do you think PLF has helped you achieve in your business over the years?
So we've done 24 6-figure launches with VO Heroes, which is my general course, with the ACX Masterclass, and now with the new platform, which is for authors who want to narrate their own titles, narrate your own book. I think that's where we are right now. Might be a little more than that.
That's awesome. I mean, that's got to take some of the security into your business versus that gig economy you were working in before, right? How has having a consistency around your launches like that really impacted you and your life now?
One of the joys of PLF is that you can design your marketing, your progress, your rule set to serve you and your community. And one of the things that we make a very basic tenet of what we do is show business comes first. So sure, we do monthly workouts and monthly accountability meetings with the students and the pros. And we want everybody to, be there and contribute and get but if you have an audition or if you have work on set or in studio, that comes first. And it comes first for the students as well as for my coaching team. I have 8 coaches on my team now that serve the way Jeff's coaches serve your community. And if any of them, they're all working actors, and if any of them have something where they have to reschedule a workout because something pops up at the last minute, which happens all the time in our business, there's no gnashing of teeth. There's no, I paid for this, I set aside time, I, got a babysitter. There's none of that. And part of it is because the people that I attract, the people that our team attracts and our program attracts, they're used to that agility in their schedule that they need to have. In fact, there's a saying in our business: if you want to start getting a whole bunch of auditions, create a vacation possibility. Go on vacation. The day you have to fly out, that's the day you'll get 4 auditions. So, they're used to that sort of thing. And when you codify that into how you build your business, I'm sure people that do all manner of things in the PLF community have specific rules that their lives and their processes go through. This just happens to be one for me. So then, you see that and you just take advantage of it and make sure that everybody's comfortable with that process. And it makes things a whole lot easier.
I can imagine, right? Always have to put the auditions and the actual work, because that's what you're going for and what you want out of this.
It smooths things out between those fairly rare situations when you're actually booking work. Unless you're an A-list actor or celebrity, you're constantly pursuing the work in our business. And, there was a time when I was on a television show that a lot of people know me from called Heroes on NBC and the BBC, where I was working every week. And my agent kept telling me, don't get used to this. This isn't gonna be this way forever. And I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's usually the way it works.
Well, I love how you also went right to your community and the people that you've been able to help create that consistency in their life as well, right? Around landing more gigs or landing more of the work that they want to create. Can you tell me a little bit about the impact that you've now had to make or got to make on the acting community?
One of the things that we're really proud of is the net results of just let's take one category, audiobooks, with a very important caveat, which I'll get to in just a second. Over the last 8 years or so, since Audible has been keeping track of the number of books that are on sale on the Audible platform and on their partner platforms that have been produced on ACX, which is that production platform where authors find narrators to do the work, and we train those narrators. Our narrators have been responsible for a little over 8,000 titles, or 1 in 30 titles produced on the platform. So that was like a blowaway moment for me. But having said that, everybody who does online marketing has some sort of a disclaimer on their site saying our success isn't necessarily going to be your success. In fact, it's highly unlikely that, you'll be able to, easily reproduce the success of some of the people that you'll see here. Well, if there was ever a poster child for that concept, it's the world of show business. It's the world of acting and voiceover. In fact, we have codified in our terms and conditions that there are no guarantees that you'll be successful. In fact, we're pretty firm on the idea that a lot of people, most people, won't be successful simply because of the amount of work available versus the number of people who think it's so easy to be an actor, anybody can do it. And they show up and there's no barrier to entry. It's not like you need a license to be an actor, or you need to have an advanced degree from NYU or from University of Toronto, or you don't have that requirement. So without any sort of gatekeeping, anybody can do this. Anybody can start to train to do this. And they look at people that are really good at what they do in the world of acting and voiceover, and it looks so flawless. It looks so simple and easy that people get the impression that it is. And an actor can look at things on television or on film, and a voice talent can hear things in a video game or in an audiobook or in a commercial and think, wow, that actor is working his ass off or her ass off. And nobody knows it, right? But we do. The numbers work against everybody who wants to be an artist in our space. And so we, again, just accept that as part of the world we live in, and we just tell people ahead of time, it's not likely that you're going to become super, super successful. And when that does happen, we all celebrate it, but we try to maintain a sense of sanity around expectations and just enjoy it when it happens and commiserate when it doesn't, and pursue the work. We say that the job of an actor is to audition. The job of a voice talent is to audition. And when it goes anywhere beyond that, that's a win.
And I love to hear that you've been able to impact so many people positively towards their dream, because acting is one of those things that people often dream they can do, but to be able to start making a living with it, it's rare that people get a chance to do that. But going back to you've had so many six-figure launches, and obviously PLF has created this consistency in your life and created the impact with your community. I wanted to ask, are there any specific parts of the program that you still find major value in after all those years, or that you remember as being really impactful for you?
There are parts of the program that I find constantly impactful for me when it comes to service through leadership. Some of the things that people look for in PLF when they're looking at is, how do I build my list? How do I make a course that sells? How do I do physical things that are looking at success for me, the PLF owner? And I find that if you do a simple jujitsu move where you use the industry's own weight against itself and move past the notion of how do I make this successful for me, and really heavily consider how to make this successful for those who I serve, it makes a huge difference, because then you're working backwards in the process and you're like, how can I build my launch, my product, my system, even what I put in the mails that I send out to my list. No one's ever going to hit all the moles on the whack-a-mole table at once. You find that as you're working on one part of your system, other parts of your system decay a little bit and need to get some love later on. It's kind of hard to cover the bases the way the super successful people do, especially if you don't have a staff, if you don't have a team that can help you. One of the advantages of people that are in Jeff's position and people who are at that sort of level is they've got a whole group of, I mean, at one point, Jeff had like 40 or 50 people. I don't know what it is now, probably a lot more than that. I mean, I wouldn't beat myself up if I was a solopreneur who was learning about product launch formula and couldn't keep up with all the things that you need to do to sort of hone and refine your system. You'll get to them eventually. And when you do, and it makes a difference, that's one of the joys of knowing the PLF process and knowing how it works, and being able to go back to the source material in the course, in the PLF teachings, and go, oh, okay, so I want to learn more about this. And I thought I learned about it when I was taking the course, but did I retain it all? Probably not. So let me go back and review it. And that always makes a huge difference. Same thing with my course. My platform, the big platform, VO Heroes, has 36 courses in it that go from the technology of voiceover to the artwork of voiceover, the different categories you work into building your business, to mindset. And there are people who just can't wait. They're type A's, they're overachievers. They can't wait to get in and mow through the coursework. And I did it in less than 31 days, And I'm always there to say, that's great. You missed a lot. You're going to go back and go through the courses again. And you're going to go, how did I miss that? You can't help but do that if your goal is to get through it as quickly as possible rather than as deeply as possible. Your question about the material is, I'm always finding new things that I missed or that I perceived in one particular way. And when I go back and look at them again, it makes sense because I've got new information from my experience doing the work. There's so much about it. And the bonus material, the launching your list and things like that. I always point people to that when I recommend PLF, to say, listen, I know you've got 4 people on your list. You, your spouse, your parents, maybe you again, like Jeff did when he had his first list. I get that. And you're just starting from the start line, and you're going to build to the point where you have a lot of, like, I never thought I'd have 38,000. I didn't know there were 38,000 people in the business that would be interested in my stuff. And I didn't get there overnight. It's been over a decade and a half in building that list and refining that list, getting rid of people that I wasn't able to serve or that weren't being served by what I had to offer.
I'm also curious, for being in the PLF community, you get some access to coaching, you get to be around other entrepreneurs. How has that affected you in the over decade you've been in our community?
There is not a moment, either in person or online, when something new and exciting is not presented in the PLF community. There's always those little tiny adjustments to the dial when you see somebody else doing something slightly different from the way you're doing something, or they're doing something that uses a bit of a different tool or a different way of using that tool. I woke up every day when I was going to the PLF live events going, so what gold nuggets are going to be on the floor of the hotel banquet room when Seven Nation Army kicks in the events? What golden nuggets are going to sit there? What's going to be on stage? What's going to be in the small discussion groups? What's going to be in my notes at the end of the day? It even changed how I take notes so that I could collect and memorialize all those little things that helped change what was going on. The online teaching thing was one of the big things. It was at a PLF event that somebody goes, "Do you really need to do things in person? Is it really that important?" Or maybe there's, advantages to doing it pre-recorded, doing it online. You can keep it updated and think about where people are doing the work. Somebody else was doing that sort of thing. And I'm like, huh, okay. So yeah, all the time.
You've done a lot of launches in your career. Have you done seed launches, internal launches, affiliate launches, all of the above?
Well, all of our launches are affiliate launches.
Oh, cool.
We were about to, as we're recording this, we're about to start. PLC One drops this coming Monday, and we have 34 affiliates on the team at this point. I love opening up my Google Doc and saving as for the next launch and changing the dates and changing the URLs and that sort of thing. That's actually one of the steps in setting up the new thing, is go through and comb through this and put the new dates in and put the new steps in. And the affiliate process is part of the setting it up. So yeah, I've done that. I've done seed launches. We did a seed launch for Narrate Your Own Book. Learned a lot about that, moving away from cohort launching toward evergreen webinar launching. That's the other thing about PLF, is that you always get these side trips, with webinar launch formula and with other aspects to it. The book launching, the bonuses are invaluable. So yeah, we've done a lot of different, we did a quick launch one. What's the name for the shopping day around Thanksgiving?
Oh, Black Friday.
Black Friday, yeah, Cyber Monday. I got a wild hair the Tuesday before, and I'm like, I've got this thing called Secrets of Screen Acting. Maybe I'll do a quick launch. And literally within an hour and a half, I had everything laid out, because it's that easy when you've been through the course and you know what to do, and you can go back and check the details and so on. And it was a quick $16,000 for about 2 hours work.
Wow.
And so that was pretty cool. And I did it from my girlfriend's parents' house across the country, and they didn't know what I was doing at the dining room table on my laptop. They had no idea, right? And so, the toughest part about that was the fulfillment of the books, sending the books out via mail when I got back. So big deal. It was great. It was great. And yeah, all of the different options and labels that Jeff puts on the various types of launches always seem to have a value that goes beyond just making money, serving the community. It's always a life lesson, it seems, with what Jeff does. So
if someone's watching this right now and they're on the fence about jumping into PLF, and they might be way at the beginning of the process, or maybe they've got launches that just they want to scale up or something, what would you tell them?
Yeah, a lot of times people look at this as a huge, huge mountain. And they look at it and they go, I got to climb that mountain. Don't look at it that way. Look at it as a series of jaunts up a little hill, and know that everyone has fear when they're first starting things out. They have the fear of failure. I don't understand any of this stuff. I can't do it. I don't understand the tech. It makes me want to take a shower, to market, to sell to people. That's one of the joys that you're going to find when you do jump into the PLF community, that everybody has these same feelings. And I would give yourself a gift and just take the chance that maybe you're telling yourself a fairy tale. You have the fear of the unknown, you have the fear of failure, but that third fear that I share with people all the time is the fear that maybe you might be successful. And once you're successful, that changes you from whatever label you decided you wanted to have on your lapel for life, to now successful online entrepreneur serving a community that you didn't even know you could create. And I think that's one of the joys of jumping into the PLF community and following this kind of training, is that you learn things you didn't expect to learn. You expect to learn how to do online marketing following a product launch process and product launch formula. What you don't expect to learn is about human beings and how they operate. and social mores and leadership through service. So there's so many side trips that you get to make that you don't expect and that are so rewarding. I would say to people, there really shouldn't be an issue about this. You're gonna find some way of doing this eventually. This is the right place to be.
We have this concept called launch life in our community, since we're talking about community. And I always like to ask everybody that I get the chance and the joy to interview like this, what does launch life mean to you?
Launch life to me means I don't have to worry about where I'm situated to be able to serve my community. I can do this in an airport, gate area. I can do this at, my girlfriend's parents' dining room table. I certainly can do this in my studio upstairs or in my studio here, my video studio, but it doesn't really matter where it is. It gives me the agility that I didn't have before, and it gives me peace of mind. I don't have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. I don't have to worry about whether or not a casting director thinks I'm the right look for a part. I don't have to worry about, if I do have a casting director who thinks I'm the right look for a part, having the responsibility of being at a 9 to 5 job and potentially threatening that job because I want to do my acting work. It gives me the kind of freedom that I wish for others. It's really amazing.
Well, thank you so much, David, for sharing your story with us. I think it's going to affect positively a lot of people. So we appreciate you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris.